Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Caccera, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Caccera.
Hi, welcome in. Joe Caccera here with Real Estate Radio Live. I hope everyone is doing well, considering all of us are in and out of different places, even though we're still able to access the studio and the office here. I know, Jack, you're in the office as well. But in our case, we don't have to worry because we're well insulated from people in our offices right now.
Well, there's no one here. It's
Right.
It's kind of quiet. You can actually get a lot more work done. People don't believe that, but you do.
Yeah.
I've got kind of a war room for a case that's going to trial. So I've got like so many things. I don't have a room big enough in my home. We have a big conference room with lots and lots of whiteboard space. And I literally have like all over. And by the way, I put in the flip chart something I've been working on for a long time, which has nothing to do with the case, but I put it in my background because eventually, by the end of our series this year, we're going to come back to the 7 essences and how you should measure what's important in your life over time, of which obviously a lot of the business stuff we do is just one element of a very complicated life that we each have, lives, I guess, that we each have.
Right.
As fathers, husbands, and so on and so forth.
And everybody's probably going to have a different way to reflect on their life after everything recently.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Because the title we picked today was Too Small to Fail, ? Because I think what you find out is who's really loyal to you and your business, and how loyal do you want to be back to those people who may not be as loyal as you believe they should be.
Right.
So a lot of firms take, particularly professional service firms, whether law firms, accounting firms, consulting firms, they tend to take the view that now's the time to start to figure out what do you want to do with the rest of your life and who do you want to do it with. And so to some degree, you can actually get a lot accomplished from a business planning point of view through a crisis.
Okay.
I mean, look at what the crisis has done to people using video conferencing. Years ago, judges never used video conferencing. Now they're like experts on video conferencing. They're like, we've got to do this by video conference. There is no other alternative. We don't even want to do it just by phone. We actually do want to see what you look like. We want to see if you got dressed up for us.
Well, that's good. So we're going to do Too Small to Fail, which will get people thinking with a question mark, or are you too small to fail, I guess, huh?
Or becoming too small to fail.
Yeah.
But I think it's just too small to fail because the next one we do is too big to fail.
Okay.
And that could be question mark as well. And then we should say caught in the middle and how to avoid failing.
Yeah.
Because that's the third case. And a lot of businesses are in that third case, which is you're not so small that you can sustain the overhead. You're not so big that the government has to bail you out for sure. You're right in the middle, and you might end up going under because no one's going to take care of you. I think that's a lot of the problem right now.
It is, and I don't want to get too deep into weeds here on this one, but maybe another show, and that is what I'm reading and finding out more and more is, surprise, surprise, this shouldn't have surprised me, Jack, but it seems like there's a kind of a cronyism, if you will, in a system, even in this small business loans from the government, because there's money going to companies that people are really questioning, why did money go to these companies when you have a lot of smaller businesses that maybe aren't part of that cronyism?
Right.
Interesting.
Well, there's a big story about Shake Shack, right?
Right.
They took a bunch of money and they gave it back because they said, hey, you've got so much cash flow and profit. They still make money as takeout. I mean, they're probably doing even a brisker business to some degree.
Right.
It's actually expensive to run a bunch of servers to serve people inside of a restaurant.
Right.
Takeout windows are like, hey, we can just get this stuff done and in your car and you clean up after yourself in your car, which of course most people don't do.
Right. Yeah. So we got a good topic here. What are we going to, let's jump in and dive in. I like this. So
let me make 3 preliminary observations about this concept of loyalty, and think about 3 different spokes on a wheel, and really all 3 spokes kind of like 3 different legs to a stool or a chair. If any one of them falls down, the stool and the chair fall down. You need at least 3, 4 or better. 5 can be even better. Obviously, in wheels these days, at least in bicycle wheels, there's hundreds of spokes to a wheel. And the wheel continues to go even if 1 or 2 spokes break. And the more spokes you have, typically the sturdier the wheel is. But just take the simple case of 3. What are the 3 spokes to the wheel? Number 1, you have to actually have people that are loyal and stay with the business. Number 2, you have to have customers that are loyal and stay with the business. Mm-hmm. And number 3, you have to have something that represents a supply and delivery chain for how you take whatever you take, raw materials, and turn it into product or service that is actually delivered through some sort of pipeline. So think of that as the infrastructure. In a law firm, it's typically an office, computers, equipment, books, paper, pencils, all of that stuff. Most of which these days people have anyway, but years ago they didn't. Years ago it cost so much for that equipment that the physical plant was in the office. We know that's changing, but you still have to have some version of it. Right. Well, what's the stuff that really is subject to what I'll call the loyalty test? It's fundamentally the people, whether it's on the supply side, your people, or it's on the buy side, your customers. Mm-hmm. So when things get tough, the real question is, for example, going to a partner, let's take the simple case, partner at a law firm, and I'm not reflecting on my law firm, and I'm talking just in the abstract here, and saying we can't get paid because our clients are not paying us. Right. And that's a real thing that's happening these days, every day of the week, in multiple law firms, big, medium, and small. And there are some quote unquote partners, partners in the good times, not partners in the bad times, right. Who will say, listen, I really have to get paid. So if you want to demote me to an employee from being a partner, demote me, and I'll accept the demotion.
Interesting.
And once you're on payroll, we talked about this, you've got to pay your payroll, or you've got to let the people go. So if you can't afford the payroll, you can't screw around with that. You've got to get people off the payroll, because if you don't pay the payroll, you're making an individual violation for which you have even potential criminal liability, because you're not withholding taxes, you're not doing a bunch of other stuff, health plan stuff. So you really do have to scale, and quickly. But a partner can go without pay.
That's a good point.
Think about it. A lot of people don't understand this. They don't understand, why did law firms start, kind of the oldest profession. I've heard so many people tell me, you guys are the oldest profession. I said, yeah, maybe. I always thought we were the second oldest profession. But why do groups of people band together to form partnerships legally? Because they're not obligated to pay unless there's profit. So they can just keep tilling the field until the harvest comes in. So if you and I can get some land and we know it's going to take 9 months to harvest, I can't pay you for 9 months. You can't pay me for 9 months. I can't be your employee. You can't be my employee. We got to be partners. That's how partnerships started. It didn't start with, you're going to be my servant and I'm going to pay you. It started with, there's nothing to pay. We have to grow something now. Right? Yeah. So that first question of who are the real partners emerges in a lot of firms. So today in the news, 18 lawyers at a big New York law firm at the same time bailed out and went to another firm.
Is that right?
Big announcement. A firm that people thought, hey, no one's ever going to leave this firm. These partners make 7, 8-figure money. 8-figure money per year.
Yeah.
Per year. Who's going to leave that firm? 18 lawyers left that firm today. What does that signal? That signals the firm is unraveling. I'll leave their name out. That story is going to repeat itself as true partners either emerge or fail to emerge.
Wow.
And that's
so you think there's a lot more of that coming then?
A lot more of it coming and a lot more of it hidden from view.
Okay.
Because people will say, oh, we wanted to get rid of them. In fact, I was waiting for the press release. Yeah, those people left, but they were dead wood.
Yeah.
It's possible. I mean, it's theoretically possible that in a 180 lawyer or whatever number lawyer firm it was, that 10% was dead wood, but they were all part of a group and literally had a portable practice. Think about it. Those lawyers were in office space that no longer is going to be paid by them. It's like they took a piece of the firm and moved it over to another firm. Well, how do you pay all the overhead? How do you pay the lease? How do you pay the staff? How do you pay the secretaries? The typical ratio, Joe, by the way, is there's usually for every partner 3 to 5 lawyers and or staff, and in some places 10.
Really?
So imagine that 18 people leave.
Wow.
There's maybe 180 people under them who literally now are like, do I have a job? I just lost my boss.
Wow.
And that's all value that was created over time for a different entity. So this is how a lot of law firms go down a death spiral.
Okay.
Like there were some big firms in San Francisco a number of years ago, Heller Ehrman, Brobeck, Flager, Harrison. They devolve very quickly because as people leave, it becomes, wow, people are leaving. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And there's not much you could say. What you could say is you lost your talent and you're proving or disproving who's loyal. And then the question is, as you lose people, what's the signaling effect on people who are on the fence?
Right.
I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can stay. I'm not sure.
Okay.
So that's the first point.
All right.
So there's 2 others.
All right.
All right. Flip
Number
side,
2.
client.
Yeah.
Is that client going to stay? Is that client going to pay? Is that client going to be loyal? Is that client going to say, you know, I kind of like that person that's leaving or thinking about leaving? Because there are clients that will say, look, I really am a client of the firm, and it's the firm. Now, a lot of people think that's old history. You know, Lincoln had a partnership with a guy whose name we can't remember, and let's call it Lincoln and Jones. Yeah. No one went to Lincoln because of Jones.
Yeah.
And no one went to Lincoln because of Lincoln and Jones.
Yeah.
But there are lawyers that believe, well, you know, clients still go to a firm. They don't go to an individual. The ugly truth is they typically do go with an individual.
I would think so.
And so that means you got to keep that individual in the firm with the view that you're building a brand together. Because if it's all meant for themselves, then all you're doing is office sharing and cost sharing.
Okay.
You're just dividing and conquer. It's sometimes called you eat what you kill.
Right.
Not really a true partnership. It's much more a commission-based kind of sharing arrangement. But the clients either are loyal or aren't loyal. In a corporate setting, they're loyal or not loyal to the corporation. Okay. And usually there's more loyalty with the ones that you might classify as A clients, people you really want to partner with, and people you'll help in times of distress. You'll help them. You'll extend credit. You'll work with them. Versus people you're like, this guy just sees me as a sharpshooter.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just there for the particular, you know, target that he or she has at the time. There's no real long-term relationship. Okay, so then number 3, what happens to the infrastructure in a crisis? Now, we have an interesting crisis because you can't really even use the infrastructure. Right. Except that's available by home. And lucky for us that Zoom and Teams and, you know, all these webinar services actually seem to be filling the gap. Right. I did an oral argument in the Court of Appeal by video phone last week.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone thought it wasn't going to work. It worked. I did an argument as well by phone. It worked.
Okay.
So it works, and it's not the same. I mean, it's not exactly the same. There's a theory that when you're in the room together, there's almost a sharing of the temperature of the room. You've heard people say that. What was the temperature in the room?
Right.
That just doesn't mean what was the thermostat set at, but how were people coming across to each other? And people think you can't really get a read of that. We're doing the best we can. I mean, it's an interesting time.
Yeah. Did you have you had one like this yet on the Zoom, like video conferencing type thing? Okay.
Yes. We did a board meeting yesterday or the day before yesterday on some very complicated, difficult, and challenging issues. And I have to say, I think the people remain pretty civil. There's some disagreements in some areas, and you can get that even from the video conference. Mm-hmm. But in general, people understand, look, we have to bend and be more flexible to recognize that if we're not, as a board, we're going to lose talent. And once you start losing talent, it's that same devolution risk.
Right.
So the question becomes, what happens to this infrastructure? And one part I want to talk about for an infrastructure is your bank going to be loyal? Because they're really part of your supply chain.
Yeah.
So today, it's a funny thing because one of our banks, and we're smart enough as a firm because I've been doing this for only 4 decades, we actually have 4 banks, counting, 4 different banks. And we have trust accounts in one and operating accounts in another. And they all want our business on an exclusive basis. And I said, you have to earn that.
Okay.
And they said, has anyone earned it? I said, no, not yet. And they call me a polygamist from a banking point of view.
So what's it take to earn it? What are you looking for to earn that?
How about you give me a $5 million line of credit to run my business?
Got it. Okay.
Well, we don't really think that maybe we could. How do you feel about pledging all your real estate? You get what I'm saying? Yeah. You get it, Joe. You get it. The body language is all there. You get it. I mean,
I see it.
You see it all the time. So I say to them, I've been doing this for 40 years. You know, knock on wood, I'll do it for another 40 years. They laugh when they hear that. I live next door to the guy, as you know, that lives to 100.
Yeah.
It writes the books about living to 100. He's 90. He's 90.
Yeah, so you keep good company, so you got a chance.
I say to them, I talk about dare beyond 100. I've got guests and clients that are 96 years old that want to live to 110.
That's right.
They're called supercentenarians. They want to live to 110. They want health span to equal work span, or work span to equal health span to equal lifespan, and the lights all go out at about 115. I mean, that sounds crazy. And of course, my mom, as I say, who's going to be 90, she'll say, no, I'm only 89. Okay, you're only 89, Mom. She'd say to me, you think it's that much fun working in your 90s? She'd say, what are you, crazy? Who wants to work? I don't want to work in my 80s. But for a lot of people, they look forward to work. And I say to them, I've been around for 40 years. I'll be here for another 40 years. Why are you concerned? Give me the credit. Trust me. And of course, you know, they will, but not for $5 million. You know, maybe they would do it for $1 million. And a lot of people would say, take it. And I just say, forget it. We'll stay with 4 separate banks. So when this whole big issue came up, I raised the issue with them. And a few of them were like, we'll do whatever you want.
Really?
PPP. But a couple of them were like, yeah, we don't know. We don't know if we want to do that or not. I said, fine. Then we're going to move the money out of your bank. That got the attention of senior management.
Yeah.
You've been with us for so long. Why? Because you guys aren't putting me in any sort of queue.
Yeah.
They're like, well, we have bigger clients. I said, okay, well, then I'll go somewhere else. It's that simple, right?
Amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, just on a small scale, you know, I banked, I'll leave the bank name out, but, you know, with Bundle Select for the last 3.5 years, and granted, there's not a ton of money going in and out of there, but nonetheless, they want your business. I was a customer. They did not even answer my calls or emails to submit for an SBA loan.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
You know why that's wrong? That's equally wrong because you got assaulted in the bank lobby of what that bank probably. by a criminal that was holding it up, if I'm recalling correctly. That dates back to another episode that we better get in the episode notes, because that was a funny story. They still owe you for that, by the way.
They do.
They definitely owe you for that. But those three elements, which is, are your people loyal? Are your clients, customers, patients, whatever you want to call them, loyal?
Yeah.
And does the supply chain from point of to the point of delivery, from the point of origination to the point of delivery, does that work?
Yeah.
That work, or is it now broken? And part of it working is things like, how well is your banking? How good are the various other elements of that supply chain? Simple supply chains are easier. So small, when you are too small, it's almost like there's an argument you're too small to fail, because your people is usually you and maybe some family members. Yeah. And usually they all pull together because they see each other every night, regardless of any virus. You're going to still see them most of the time.
Well, you make a good point too. And would you also, as I listen to you, would you also think that one of the biggest considerations when you say too small is that in most cases, likely this 1, 2, 4, 3, 5 small group of people, they know what it's like to do it on their own. In other words, there was no bank standing in line to give money. There was no venture capital money. So they had no choice but to figure out how to make it work, right?
Exactly. That's
going into it.
Right. That's called self-sufficiency.
Yeah. Right.
That's called, if it will do another topic at some point, that's called being your own bank. That's called being smart about being your own bank. There's a guy that writes books about how if we taught kids from the get-go that they shouldn't rely on a bank and they shouldn't be paying interest, we would have a completely different attitude about consumption. We wouldn't have people wasting money on goofy stuff. We would be thinking, hey, I've got to finance this myself. I got to work for this. What's the value of working for this new bright, shiny object? What's the value of doing that?
I would add another one. Don't rely on banks and don't rely on your parents.
Well, your parents really, in many ways, at some point, they've got to cut you loose.
Right.
They've got to give you a chance to grow on your own. At some point, your parents have to be in a position to recognize that you got to grow up.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I tell the story. If my mom listens to this, she'll probably tell me, no, that's not really what happened. But I'll tell the story, and she's going to say, gosh, you're making me look so bad. But it's a true story. When I started as a lawyer, I worked, as you know, for a firm that was small, but then grew to be big. And God bless them, they grew to be bigger. And we started Apple Computer. I tell that story. Oracle, Electronic Arts, lots of successes. The firm had it's still doing quite well. And I know a lot of the partners, they're mostly retired now. Most of them are still alive. A few of them have died. One of them, by the way, is like a role model for how to age successfully. He does yoga. He looks like he's in his 40s, and he knows who I'm saying. So I'll send this podcast to him, and he'll really appreciate it. I'll tell him that at about 30 minutes into this, his name came up, but he'll remain nameless. He does the right things. Occasionally, I run into him in the yoga studio when yoga studios are open. All right. When I went to my mom, when I told the firm I was leaving, they were very upset. They said, "What are you doing? Are you crazy? You got to be nuts." I won't even tell that detailed story. But I went to my parents and I said, "Hey, look, I'm starting in my garage, the law offices of Jack Russo, in my garage in Palo Alto." She said, "Yeah." So I said, "I need some money." So she said, "Yeah, okay." And my dad was even harder to deal with. I won't even tell about him because he's deceased, old Navy guy. Yeah, he laughed at me like, "What do you think, I'm a bank?" So I went to my mom. She's usually much better about this. And I said, "Ma, I need some money." And she said, "Why?" And I said, "Because I'm starting a firm." So she said, "Yeah, okay, why?" So I said, "Usually you have to hire people. And I actually have the potential to take some cases, but it might take a while to get some billings going. So I don't know, like a 1-year loan would be nice, 6 months." And she said, "How much?" So I gave her a number, which I guess that time she thought was too big. And she said, you want me to get out of the stock market to give you a loan? The stock market was doing really well for her at the time, so she had to get out of the stock. It wasn't, by today's standards, maybe it was a lot of money, but
you were asking her to divest for her son. Right?
Exactly. So I said, yeah, I guess I am. And she said, I think I'm going to have tax consequences. She started listing all these things. I have to say, she's going to probably choke me when she watches this. But I said, Ma, I'm your oldest son. I've done a lot of stuff for you. I was begging. And I remember at the time thinking, God, why am I begging? I usually don't beg with anyone. I was sort of begging. And of course, I didn't go back to my dad and I was wondering, was it really her? Was it him?
Yeah.
He had a whole frugality about him that's hard to describe. But let me tell you, to this day, I do appreciate the lesson I learned. And that was learned quite a while ago, decades ago. I went to a client that I had, that was my client, a client that I was the guy taking care of.
Okay.
And I went to a meeting with him and I told him, with the permission of my old firm, hey, I'm leaving the firm and you can go any which way you want. You can stay with them. They've got great lawyers. You can go with me. I'm a one-man show. Maybe I'm going to hire some people, maybe not. It kind of depends on a lot of things. This guy actually had a lot of work. We can bless his soul. But his view was, you sue first and ask questions later. His view is when people get the lawsuit, they start to pay attention.
Interesting.
And I'll tell you, if he was still alive, I'd send this podcast because he was like an angel after a client. So he said to me, and remember, this is 3+ decades ago.
Wow.
He said to me, he used to call me Lucky. He said, so Lucky, in person, he was like 30, 40 years. He could have been my dad. Could have been my grandfather, maybe.
Yeah.
He said, so Lucky, what do you need? So I said, I don't know. I want to say I said something like $20,000.
Right.
This is 3 decades ago or more, almost 3.5 decades ago. So you might say, well, that's a lot of money in today's dollars, right? So he said, I'm going to write you a check for triple that. I want to say that I asked for like 15 and he wrote me a check for 50.
Really?
50.
Wow.
You know what that's like? That's like getting a $250,000 retainer.
Yeah, right.
You don't sneeze at a $250,000 retainer. He said, you be loyal to me and I will be loyal to you.
Wow.
And I remained his lawyer literally right to his death. And when he got into trouble, this is an absolute true story. And I hope at some point someone comes on your show, my show, because it's a big real estate story wrapped up. He got in over his head, way over his head.
Okay.
Not because of any advice I gave him. I would often say, don't sign the guarantee. Don't pledge the real estate. I'd say, no. And he'd say, I got to do it. I got to save the employees. I got to run the business. He had a business that was cyclical. He had about 150 employees. He had every issue in the book. When you represented him, you saw everything. Labor union negotiations, tax audits. It was like being a general counsel. You saw every aspect of growing a business, sustaining a business, rescaling a business, scaling a business. And he's a well-known brand, but I'm going to leave that out. The brand is still well-known. It's still very valuable. So I said to him, he said to me, I'm in trouble. I said, what do you need, Frank? He said, I don't know if you can help me. I need $2 million. That's not a small amount of money.
And when was this?
I want to say it was about 10 years ago.
Okay.
So still significant dollars.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I said, I'll get it for you. I did exit all of my stocks to get him that money.
No kidding.
I did.
And that was based on his trust in you early on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was based on, you were loyal to me when I got started.
Right.
I am going to be loyal to you. And I saved real estate that was conservatively worth $20 million for him. The business had a separate set of issues, but he was being attacked by a bank that he had pledged and guaranteed a bunch of business loans on. And I came in and I gave him no interest, no points, no nothing, zero, no hard money aspect, nothing. I gave him $2 million to save that real estate.
Wow.
And we paid the bank off so he could get refinancing in place over a 6-month period, which he did. and the family was able to save for the family estate what became probably $30 million worth of real estate.
Boy.
I mean, it's a great story. And and because it was a transaction with a client, I had to get another lawyer and the accountant to sign off on the paperwork.
Wow.
Because I was his lawyer.
Uh-huh.
So I couldn't be like, I'm the fiduciary. He had to bring in, I had to get for him. He was like, I trust you, man. You're saving me. You're throwing me a life reserver. Show me where to sign. I trust you. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
His accountant said to me that day, he said, I've never seen anyone do this. And to this day, if that guy is around and we get him on a show, his first name is Mike.
All right.
If we get Mike on a show, we'll leave his last name out. He'll come on and he'll say, probably even to this day. Now, I'm not here to make loans to clients, so I'm not pitching that. But I'm saying in general, that kind of loyalty begets loyalty.
Yeah.
And that kind of loyalty, by the way, inside of a law firm begets loyalty. So if a partner gets into trouble and they're loyal, then down the road when they get into trouble, some do, like criminal cases, all kinds of stuff happens in life.
Right.
Who are you going to call? And believe me, it's not Better Call Saul, because Saul isn't going to pick up the phone. Saul Goodman is not a real lawyer.
No.
Saul Goodman is a cartoon character. It's a great show, but you can't just Better Call Saul and he's going to make a few phone calls and all of a sudden you've got a new passport and you're ready to leave the country. Kind of thing.
That's a great story. It goes right along.
It's a true story. And you know what the other, it's a true story. And I'm pretty sure that his kids are still alive. And if I could find them, I'll send them this video.
Oh,
and they could correct me. But believe me, I remember his wife, after Frank died, his wife called me. And she said, you saved our ass.
Wow.
You saved, she eventually moved to Arizona. And she said to me, and you know, when she made that move, they gave me a table. They used to be the conference room table here. And people were like, this table's too big. This table was a hand carved from Spain.
Wow.
Mahogany table. The table is now in the Madison Street Inn.
Oh, okay.
And so if people want to visit the Madison Street Inn, which of course we tried to get Danielle to come on the show and she's always said no, but if you want to see the most beautiful table that I got as a gift, as the wife was moving to Arizona because of health issues, she wanted to get dry air, and Frank was in essentially an Alzheimer's home, and they were essentially moving on as a couple because he had Alzheimer's. Yeah. So people that know who I'm talking about will probably all be nodding their head, but everyone else will say that's an interesting story and glad to hear it. But you know, what is that going to do for me tomorrow? Well, I think what it's going to do for you is pick your partners. With the question of, are they partners in crisis? Yeah, good point. Or are they going to tell you? And let me tell you, I've seen a lot of cases where couples that thought they were going to be married or stay married or were getting married, a crisis happens. And whichever partner, the wife, the husband, the boyfriend, whichever way you want to cut it, goes to the other one and says, look, I'm in crisis. I need your help. I am choking. I am going under. I'm going to need some help. If that person blinks, that relationship is over.
No, it's interesting you say that. Yeah, I agree with you.
If that person blinks, I'm not saying they might not say a word. They might look like I got to think about it. They might, but if they show that body language, it is game finito. It is over. And as I said, there's a guy, and it goes back to the 7 Essences. There's a guy named Dr. John Gottman that watches those micro expressions that people make, and he has a 96% predictive scale that he can tell you whether you're going to get divorced based on watching a sampling of video of how you deal with hard problems. We all deal with hard problems. All deal with hard problems. You know, you have a kid that gets into trouble and ends up in a police station, and you look over at your spouse or partner or whoever you're with and says, I gotta deal with my kid. Maybe it's a kid from a former marriage. And she looks at you like, don't expect my help. Yeah. That's it. It's over. Yeah. It is game over when that happens. And a lot of people don't understand that.
we got just a minute or so left.
Yep.
This was a good example and some good analogies and great stories.
Well, I got a little emotional there because I have to tell you, I actually did at times, and I told this to my dad, and he got upset. I said, you know, my client was more of a father figure to me, at least from this business point of view. And it's not really denigrating my father, but I said, you know, Dad, when I needed the money, you know, you said no, and Mom said she didn't want to pay their taxes or whatever. I said, I had a guy that really was loyal to me. So I'm going to end on this punchline. So my parents got into trouble, and you might say this is brutal, but this is called tough love. My parents got into trouble. Really? And they came to me. And this was actually.
And how long ago was that, Jack?
This was actually after I got the $2 million loan.
Oh, okay.
Some number of years they got into trouble, and I reinvested that money. And they said, you know, we need some money. And I said, why? And it was not really trouble. It was like, we want to get this beachfront condo.
Oh, okay. So wasn't going to get them. They weren't in trouble.
No, they weren't in trouble. Think of it as like an optional, make our life better beachfront thing, right? Yeah. I probably shouldn't have made it that dramatic, but I'm sure they would say, no, we were in trouble. We were going to lose this great opportunity. Yeah. So I said, let me ask you something. Do you remember when I called you up about 35 years ago? And they said, vaguely, what was the call about? I was starting a law firm. Do you remember that? And they said, yeah, okay. And I said, do you remember what you said to me? I'm going to say that to you politely. And I'm not saying no. I'm saying you got to do this first. Go to the bank and see what the bank is charging you for interest, points, all that jazz. And then tell me what that is, and we'll talk about what you need. And you know, they got the message. They got the message because it was like, yeah, we should not be leaning on you. We should not look at you as a cheap source of credit. We should go to a bank. And they're very bankable people. So they did. Now, they're not miffed at me. We just had what might be called the hard conversation of loyalty begets loyalty. And it's not that there's any hatred, but it is true that loyalty begets loyalty. And if there is no loyalty, even within a family unit, there's typically, I'm not going to call it payback, but I'm going to call it a standard that's set. And the standard is either high or low, depending on what the element of loyalty is in the relationship. Now, some listeners are going to say, man, you might be an a-hole or something like that. I actually said, I'll give you the credit, but it ain't going to happen without you doing the work to see what you could actually get from a bank. And by the time they had to go through that process, they were like, maybe we don't even want this place. So it probably in the end really helped them in deciding whether they really wanted it. So, because sometimes when things are too easy, it's like, where do we sign? Right. But when you really have to go through the process, it becomes, hey, we have to go through a process.
Right. That's great. What a great story. You got a lot of great stories, Jack.
I got a lot of stories. You
do.
Man. Someone said at some point I should sit down and write another book about them. I don't know what we'd call it. I guess tentatively I'd call it 7 Essences. And
maybe Law and Life or something like that.
Yeah, right? I mean, I think at the end of the day, as you get older practicing law, you really understand it's much more about giving people advice that hopefully has a bit of wisdom in it. And that wisdom actually becomes much more what they're buying. I mean, they're buying loyalty, relationships, smarts, intelligence, all that stuff. But they're also trying to avoid wasting a lot of time, money, and frustration in dealing with stuff that I've seen, or in your case for all the financial stuff you do that you've seen. So in general, I'd say, pick without those ideas in mind, and don't pick just based on, well, LegalZoom told me I should use this guy fresh out of law school for my paperwork. Okay, you can use them, but wait to see what the outcome would be.
Yeah, good point. Well, outcome would be. Let us remind all the listeners where they could reach you if they need some of the help, or if they need another one of these great stories.
Well, let me tell you, what I've got here is the ability now to put up on your screen, Computer Law Group LLP.
Oh, look at that.
I did that.
Wow.
And we put it right at the top, open
but
and ready
make sure but make sure you voice it too, because not everybody's going to see this. Remember?
Right. So what's on the screen is the website for computerlaw.com. It's Computer Law Group LLP. We're in San Francisco and Palo Alto. It's 650-327-9800. You typically contact us by way of going to either the website, or you can go to Jay Russo, that's me, the managing partner, JRUSSO at computerlaw.com. That's COMPUTERLAW.com. We've got a Facebook page. We've got a LinkedIn page. We've got some pictures of our people.
Yeah.
We got pictures of the 401 Florence building. But let me tell you what's most important these days. We've got this unbelievably valuable Google set of reviews. So let me just show you how you get there, because you probably haven't done this, Joe, but you need to do this for your business. So when you go to Google, so if you type in something like computer law, I'll just type in computer law group. Now, in theory, that should very quickly show Computer Law Group Palo Alto, right?
Right.
See it. It's right there. And we got some photos on here and all that jazz, and it comes up in the Google site. 36 five-star Google reviews.
Wow, look at that.
36. Now, if I were to go down, and they usually put competitive firms that are also related, you're not going to find 36.5. You're not going to find 36 reviews. You're going to find much fewer reviews. And if you actually look at the reviews, they're all real reviews. They're not some sort of, crazy thing. And people are doing this now. They're going to the reviews, and, their test is often, what are the reviews like from a quality point of view? I can't write this stuff. I can't write stuff that has this stuff down. These are people who are saying, I've known Jack for 20 years.
Yeah.
With various companies where he's represented investors. This time he's creating a new company. Jack is on my team. In less than 1 week, Jack was able to form a very complicated corporate structure. So you get the flavor of these reviews. You could flip through them. There's 36 of them. They're all real. They're all at 5-star. That's a very rare thing to have these days. You
probably got me in there somewhere.
I appreciate that, Joe. If not, I was going to ask you to do a review.
Go through that real quick, Andrew. There's Andrew.
I'm going to look for it. Look for it.
I could have swore that I have one in there.
I'll look for it, and if you're not in there, I'm going to remind you of this. But you could say to yourself, how do you get these reviews? It's only by, these are all optional things. No one requires this.
Right.
It's by actually doing the work.
Yeah.
It's just like for Bundle Select. It's like doing the work.
Right.
So for Bundle Select, you've got a great website. I'd say in some ways your website is way better than ours, because it's a lot sort of cleaner than ours. I think ours has way too many words on it, but as lawyers, we're in the business of words. But look at you, man. You got two people making out together in a new home. What's better than that? And the guy looks really happy. There you go. There's a decision, right?
He's
all these big customers.
Early in the relationship. Yeah, look at that. We got some good customers there.
No, seriously, this is pretty valuable to be able to say, meet your concierge, relocated employees. You've got this all laid out in a very clean way.
Yeah, they did a nice job.
I think it's a beautiful job. You've done a great job. This is your brainchild manifested in a business that we helped you get going with.
Yeah, that's very true.
So it's a great story too.
Yeah, very good.
Good. So I'll check. My to-do is check the Google reviews and make sure I see one from.
Yeah, make sure you see one from me. I think I should have one in there, but let me know.
Good.
All right, Jack. As always, as usual, great show. We'll do one next week, I hope.
Yeah, I hope so too. Good seeing you.
All right, take care.
Talk to you later.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at RERadiolive.com.